you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Well, good morning, and welcome to the CRCS, or the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. It is 9 o'clock in the eastern part of the Western Hemisphere at 12:20, 2022, today's edition, and we say welcome to the program. Glad many of you who are on the line right now and those who have joined the internet. Let me give you the numbers here to call in for today's program. Just call 516-453-9921. And when you do that, please, if you have please, ma'am, please, sir, a quick comment. Please don't go into great detail. Just a quick question so that Mr. Fuller can answer your question. Please. Could you do that today, please, ma'am? Please, sir? Just ask the question and give Mr. Fuller a chance to answer the question. Just call that number again, 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button, and if you are a new caller, make sure that you tell the call screener that you are a new caller and that we have something very special set up for you so that you can be heard. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. I am getting stacked up on those emails, or Gmails, I'm sorry. Then I will try to get as many in as I can, depending upon the flow of the show. We'll try to get those in. So even if you use that number, I will acknowledge it by a symbol that I am now using to let you know that I have received it. But now as to when it will be read, I have no idea. I'm trying to help you to think that just because you sent it in, it's going to be read on the next program. That's not necessarily true. So just keep that in mind, but it will be read at some time, and I will inform you of that. Lastly, you can join the chat room. You can do that. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com. You want to make sure that you click on programs, and then when you do that, the Produce Justice Show will come up. You click that, and then the chat room is available for you once you hit that, and you can get into the chat room. And occasionally I will use some of the things that are going on in the chat as a point of discussion. But I would request that, and you've done a good job of this, please do not use the chat room to ask me to ask Mr. Fuller a question. That is for the number, the regular call number, or you can ask your questions doing the Gmail. Okay. Matter of fact, I might ignore it if you ask it in the chat room. So just make sure you do it that way. Then that way I will not ignore it. Okay. And while you're in that chat room, check this out. Constructive Action Items is on board, joining the conversation. And what she usually does is give a recap of last week's show. It's just kind of the sergeant at arms, trying to make sure that everybody stays in compliant with the code, beyond code. So make sure you do that. Okay, I think that is it for this. One more show in this 2022 year, which will be next Tuesday as far as I know. And then we'll just do what we usually do. Thank you, Constructive Action Items. She listed it again. It's right there in the chat room. Okay. So without further ado, let me introduce to some and let me present to others Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And Mr. Fuller, Good morning, and how are you on this 12/20/2022 today?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Okay. This is a segment that we have, and a lot of people seem to like it. It's called The Thoughts and Expressions on the Mind of Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, what is on your mind this morning?
That everybody should have a plan. In particular, why not just pick this time to start planning out. Make a 5-year plan or a 1-year plan or a 2-month plan about what are you going to be doing the next 2 months that you think needs to be done, and start figuring out how you think it's best to go about doing it. In other words, start making a code rather than just blundering through each and every day and just waiting on somebody else to give you some signal about what your life is supposed to be. Codification is about some type of order, some type of consistency, some type of what we loosely call progress. And if you have offspring, tell them, think about making a plan and sticking with it. I mean, this is every breath that you take. That's a day gone by, a week gone by, a moment gone by. You're born into the world with 2 things, time and energy. And start looking back. That's an excellent place to start. And look at all the mistakes you've made. Because we all make mistakes, and we're going to make more of them in the future. But you minimize your mistakes, and you learn from each mistake that you make. That's in every area of activity. Economics, meaning how you spend your time and energy, how you spend your money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But basically how you spend your time and how you spend your energy. That's basic economics according to the code. And then education. Start concentrating on learning something that's going to be strictly constructive. Ask yourself, whatever it is that you're trying to learn, how it can be used to do something constructive that'll work for you. Think about that all the time. I mean, really be serious about it. And just don't say that you're here and so going about doing anything any kind of old way. I mean, that's what you see people doing around you. And so that's the popular thing to do. Go here, go there, buy this, buy that. Stop that. Say you're going to stop it to yourself right now. You're not trying to prove anything to anybody else. Prove some things to yourself. And get your offspring, if you're old enough to have them, to think that way. What's your plan? Somebody's planning on killing somebody, sometime for Christmas Day because of something that they heard that they said. Get out of that frame of mind. What makes that person that important? Stop and think about it. Just go somewhere and think about it all day. What makes that person more important? What was that person doing 20 years ago? And where were you? You weren't even around the person. If you've been around that long, you're 18 years old. Where was that person 18 years ago? And say, well, that person is 1 year older than me. So that person's just running around playing with toys, and you didn't even know the person. Now you want to go out there and kill them on account of you heard they said something about you or did something about you, and everybody cracked up. Because they thought it was funny. So you got to get even. A little nonsense like that. Don't let somebody else just jerk your life around like that. I'm speaking directly now. because millions of people do it, among black people particularly. Get all excited and worked up about nothing. Absolutely nothing. I mean, people are just people. They're not even people who are well known. Some of them learn early in life that Shakespearean saying, much ado about nothing, because that's what it is. A lot of things are going to happen here on Christmas Day, or Christmas night, or Christmas Eve particularly. Some people are going to hurt somebody, or you're going to do something to hurt yourself. And when you look back on it, next year at this time, you will not have corrected that mistake. You'll do the same thing again, simply because it's a so-called, quote-unquote, holy day. Just some thoughts that I was having. Think about it. Plan. That's what you do. It's not just a matter of what you don't do. It's what you do and what you plan to do. Usually when you have a plan and you're serious about it, you don't let anybody get in the way of that plan. Or you don't get in your own way because you don't have one. You wait for somebody to make a plan for you. And that's what black people are used to. Get used to making plans for ourselves. And that plan becomes a code, if there's any plan at all that's worth having. And stick with it. It'll clean up your entire existence. You feel better about a lot of things, and you'll do better.
Mm-hmm. Okay, plan. Mr. Fuller, before we get into this show completely, on that plan, could you relate that plan to the 4 wants?
Yes. Oh, yes. Your plan always is based on what you want. So you just sit down now, even before Christmas, and say, what do you really want? And what will you want for the next 5 years or for the next year? Just lay it out. Or if you can't think that far ahead and all like that, then think a week ahead. What's your plan for the week? Most of us just kind of blunder through things, get up, go here, go there, wait for somebody to tell us what to do, what's valuable, turn on television and try to find out what somebody else is doing so you copy that, and without even thinking about whether or not it fits you. Learn to reject things that don't make sense.
Okay.
Black people are just so anxious about everything that we jump right on anybody's bandwagon that happens to be coming down the street.
Okay.
It's something to do.
Specifically for those who are new to the program, you have that plan in your books, the 4 wants, on page 171, 172. Could you repeat that so that those who are new to the program will know exactly what we're talking about when we say the 4 wants?
Yes. You ask yourself, what do I want to do? Next question, why do I want to do what it is I think I want to do? Why do I want to do it? Number 3, how do I plan to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Big plan, small plan. If it's an almost insignificant plan, I mean, look at it that way. It's an insignificant plan, but it's something I want to do. And then number 4, what do you expect the constructive result to be? That includes everything from buying something or trading in that car you got because somebody you know down the street, they got one. They got rid of their car and got a new one. Well, it might be your car is serving you well,
And so just because they got one, so what? If you stop and think about it. Well, it's shiny and new. Oh, that's the reason for you getting a new car that's going to cost $47,000? Think about it. That vehicle you got.
Yes, sir.
Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's running. It doesn't give you any problem. That's a gold mine right there. But think about what is going to be the constructive result. You're already behind in your bills. Don't do something just because you see somebody else doing it. Usually somebody that you know. Do something that fits you. You are somebody you're an individual. According to the code, there's nobody in the universe like you. There's never been anybody that was like you. Exactly like you, because there's never been anybody that was you. Unless it was you. You've been here before. So you're unique. You're not everybody else. And stop thinking that way. That's according to the code. The code is supposed to be based on logic. You have a mission. Be it ever so humble. You have a mission when you're born. Give yourself a chance for that mission to come to you. It'll come to you. But don't get in the way of your mission by looking over there on somebody else's paper all the time, looking at, what you going to do? Well, I'm going to do that too. That's never a reason to do anything. Never a reason to do anything simply because you saw somebody else doing it.
Yes, sir. All righty.
And those four wants. Ask yourself that question every day, all day. Because you want something every day. And it'll help you to stop making the mistakes that you make, too.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Let's focus in on plan. Okay. Let's go to Nawab. He's been anxiously waiting for this. So he says, Dear Mr. Fuller, I'll keep it real simple. I have two direct questions. Number one, Mr. Fuller, is it possible to acknowledge how formidable your opponent or adversary is without overdoing it? In other words, not underestimating them, but not greatly overestimating them either, to the point where you almost assign God Almighty-like status to them. And if you will, why over the past so many years that you've been on this platform with Mr. Bobby in one capacity or another, not been able to ever watch any of or the more recent modern films that callers have recommended, suggested, for example, The Matrix or The Black Panther is among them. Thank you, Brother Jay.
Well, I haven't seen either one of those movies, The Matrix or The Black Panthers, so I can't comment on that and what the content is. But if people get some lessons, which is what you're supposed to be doing when you look at a movie, pick out the lessons. Movies have lessons. I mean, the fictional movies, the movies that are based on truth, and try to get the bottom line out of every movie that you make, which is, what's the constructive result of the message of this movie? Mm-hmm. Movies have messages. I have a list of them that's on the website, producejustice.com. In fact, I looked at one last night. My favorite Christmas movie. And it's Not a Wonderful Life, because I have a tendency to look at real old movies made back in the 40s and 50s, some in the 60s. But it's a movie, a very obscure movie called Chicago Cab and Hell Cab. And it's my favorite Christmas movie. Now, it's not to be looked at just for the vulgarity, because there's a lot of that in it. And you might not want to have young people listening and all that. But as a quote, unquote, mature person, to the extent that you can look at the realism in the movie, it's my favorite movie, and along about Christmas time, because it has to do with getting along with white people in the last scene. I keep looking at that movie for the major reason is to see the last scene, which is the conversation between a white cab driver and a black passenger. Mm-hmm. And just the conversation they have about their mothers. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting, very subtle, but you can see the exchange, the human element, as they call it. At this time of year, people talk about humanity. Well, that just in a very almost unnoticeable way, or corny way, some people would say, a boring way, some people say, just a conversation in a taxi.
Okay.
During Christmas time.
Yeah. Okay. He was asking, though. He was asking, why haven't you been able to ever watch any of the more recent movies?
Because I'm satisfied with the movies I've seen, for the messages that I have. But I tell people, just because I don't have them on my list doesn't say you should. You learn something every day. I'll get around to doing it. I mean, maybe. Looking at The Matrix and a number of other movies. I'm seeing them advertised. I try to keep up. A lot of people have said they've seen the Avatar movie. I haven't seen that. They say it's lessons in there full of. Well, it's lessons in everything that you see every day. And that's what the code says. Learn to look for lessons in everything you see people doing, and even artificial scenes like movies. Okay? What you hear when you're just generally walking down the street, what you see and hear. Lessons in everything that you see and hear. And you pick out what's constructive and what's not. That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line. Okay. But he was asking, here's on the first question, he said, is it possible to acknowledge how formidable your opponent or adversary is without overdoing it? In other words, not underestimating them, but not greatly overestimating them either, to the point where you almost assign God Almighty-like status to them.
Anytime you overestimate or underestimate, you're making a mistake. So the issue is minimize your mistakes. That's in anything. Yes, I mean, if you go skiing, you decide you're going to take this angle and not that angle, and the angle that you take breaks up your skiing, you go tumbling down the hill end over end, broke a leg, broke your arm in 2 places. So you made a mistake. You minimize your mistakes by making assessments that are what? Truthful. Main thing, always tell yourself the truth about yourself, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. And then look around, because everything is mistake prone in this world, in this system, and particularly when people interact with each other. We're all mistake prone.
All mistake prone.
Because there's
Okay.
a perfect way to interact with another person, and then there's all kinds of hundreds of ways to interact with a person that brings about conflict and disappointment and all the other things that make people angry.
All righty. Let's go to the phone lines, and thank you for holding. Let's go to Corey in Houston. Let me see if I can get you in here, Corey. All righty, maybe. There we go. Corey, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Or Cleo.
Bobby,
I'm sorry, Cleo. Yeah. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Bobby. I knew who you meant.
Yeah. Okay.
Good morning to everyone. Long live NFJ and forever live Logic. Thanks to you, Mr. Bobby Robert Moonpine Sharon, for your work. We appreciate your partnership with Mr. NFJ. Mr. Fuller, can you please explain why celebrating any holiday is non-constructive and strengthens the system of white supremacy rather than weakens it?
Because the system of white supremacy needs to be eliminated, and we usually take our signals from the white supremacists that give them strength when we react to them. And I say that a lot of things that we do that we call celebrations and look forward to. The code says, this is the prescription. When you say, because in the code, it's all about not just what you stop doing, it's what you start doing. So what we call celebration should be, according to the code, don't celebrate, educate. And like even Christmas is a time, we call it to celebrate the birth of Jesus in the Christian religion. But why not just substitute the word under the law of compensation, celebrate, but educate? So what's the birth of Jesus about? And then you can go into that. And what is the lesson you're supposed to learn that's going to have a constructive result? Because you shouldn't be celebrating anything unless there's a lesson to be learned. If somebody comes and say, we're going to celebrate, and you say, celebrate what? In order to accomplish what that's of constructive value? We're going to celebrate rainbowism. And you say, what is that? And they say, new types of sexuality or old types of sexuality that's being revealed and needs to be celebrated. So then you say, well, okay, but what's going to be the constructive result? They always look for the bottom line. Some people are planning on in 4 or 5 days, they go into a bar and get drunk. They say, I'm celebrating. And then get in the car, leave the bar, get in the car. This is their usual procedure. This is what they do every year. But this time it didn't work out too well. And it's going to happen on account of what our so-called habits. Celebrate. I just got to. By doing what? Well, after I open my presents and all like that and eat a good meal, at night, I'm going down to the bar. And I'm going to drink. I'm going to be happy. Eat, drink, and be merry. And then you are on the 6 o'clock news that next day. And they didn't even spell your name right. Because you were celebrating and that car you in ran into a tree, and you went through the windshield, and this thing that they call life went out of your body because of what you put in your body. But no matter how much it's been preached, celebrating the birth of Jesus, you wound up dead at age 27. Don't make that kind of plan.
Mm-hmm.
Educate yourself and say, oh, what I'm going to do? I'm going to eat a healthy meal. I'm going to call a few people that I haven't called and see if I can help them solve some of the problems that they have and ask them for some ideas about solving some of the problems that I have and see what the results are going to be. And then I'm going to have an excellent night's sleep and not drinking no poison or smoking nothing or shooting up nothing, including other people. Going out on Christmas night and got a gun.
Okay.
Why? I might run into some of the people I had a beef with. And here at the Yuletide is an excellent time to trade a few insults that'll lead to some shooting. And now, here it is, Happy New Year in New York City, and I'm locked up for triple murder.
Yeah.
That's going to happen, because that's how we think. Too many of us. Not all, but we don't have to do that. See, everything I do from now on is going to have a constructive result. I'm not going to be around non-constructive people. That's number one. If I can avoid it.
If you can avoid it, yeah. All right. Let's plan ahead not to do that. All right, Cleo in Houston, thank you. Thank you. Let's do this. You're listening to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., and we are so delighted that you are. For those who would like to get in contact with the show, to do so by calling this number, 516-453-9921, and make sure you press the number 1 button to give the call screener your name, and then you will get in line so that Mr. Fuller can address your call. You could also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And when I receive it, I will give you my symbol to let you know that I have received it. And it will be read at a time when it is appropriate for me to do that. And lastly, you can get into the chat room on the show. Just go to blogtalkradio.com, and you want to click on programs, and then when you get to the Produce Justice show, click that. And once you click it, the chat room becomes available to you, and you click that bad boy, and then you're able to get in there and get into today's study. Very interesting subjects are a lot of times in there, and occasionally I will read them. So make sure that you do that. By the way, if you are a first-time caller, please give the call screener your name and indicate that this is your first time calling. They will alert me, and then by tradition, we'll give you a new caller's shout-out so that you can and will be heard. You don't have to be scared, okay? All righty, back to the phone lines. Now, I'm going to ask everybody, please, make your comments short today, all righty? So that Mr. Fuller can answer your question in an appropriate manner. And let's go up to Toronto. George, get ready. Here we come, and we are on. There you go, George.
Oh, hi, Good morning, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller. I was just thinking about what Mr. Fuller said at the beginning of the program, and I was just trying to think about what's important and what I have control over, and what's not important, what I don't have control over. So I was just thinking that I think what the gentleman was saying in the previous question, when he was saying about giving godlike ability to people, like, for example, white supremacists, racists, and then being in the prison system. So I was just thinking about what I had control over and what I didn't have control over. So I guess what I have control over is how I react to situations. And then I was just thinking about how the white supremacists have had effect on my life and what I have control over when it comes to them. So there's the 9 areas of people activity. So I was just thinking about what I have control over. So I guess that's the question for myself. But then I was trying to think of what could I ask Mr. Fuller about that. So I was just thinking about before I became aware of the compensatory code back in 2012, I didn't know that I was subject to racism, white supremacy, but then at the same time, I don't want to, Mr. Fuller, what do you think people of color should really do when it comes to making decisions when they're subject under the system of racism, white supremacy? I guess that's
all righty. Okay, Mr. Fuller?
What's that question? What do you think people should do when it comes to making decisions?
Yeah, when you're subject to racism, white supremacy, because there are things that you do have control over, and there's certain things that you don't have control over. So I guess the question is, each individual person of racism has to find out what they have control over. So I guess it does get tied into what you want and what you don't want. So I guess that's the question.
All right, Mr. Fuller?
Yes, it always goes with that want. That's how you find out. Do you have control over getting what you want? And how to go about doing it. That's what codification is about. It's a way to go about doing things. But you always want to know the bottom line first before you even start out. That's number 4. What's going to be the constructive result if you get what you want? There's an old saying, and I didn't invent that. And that is, be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. And that's the first order of business when you start thinking about doing anything. Be careful what you ask for. You sign on a dotted line that contract for buying something that after you bought it and signed the contract for it, almost at the time before your signature gets dry, which takes about a fraction of a second, you realize you have made a huge mistake, which means you do some thinking. The codification is about thought, a whole lot of thought for black people, because we do a lot of things without thinking. Give some thought to what it is that you're setting your heart on it and what it is you think is a big deal. Give that some serious thought. Take another look and then another look and then walk away from it and then come back and take another look. And then make a decision. Can I do this? Is it the thing to do? Will it have a constructive result, and what will be that constructive result? You want all the details before you make any move.
Absolutely.
Time frame, everything. That's what I was saying about number 3 in your wants. What's your plan? What's your plan? And then number 4, always, what do you expect the constructive result to be if your plan works. Somebody's thinking about carjacking today. Now, they got an excellent plan, because they did it last week, and it worked. But now they're going back to the same place, same filling station where they jacked that car last week, and because it worked then, somebody on the other end may have figured it out. They're going to strike again. So they made a plan. And you ran into an ambush. Now what?
Well, if you were speaking about what happened here, the end result was the guy got killed, guy got shot. If you're referring to that one.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I don't know nothing about it, but I do know how black people operate. If they do something and it seems to work, I mean, we're habit people.
Yeah.
That's how we get on drugs and all that.
Well,
I'm going to do that again. I'm going to do it again. You get away with killing a couple of people. That's been 8 years ago. We're going to kill somebody else. See, we just keep on doing stuff until we get a wake-up call that we weren't prepared for. So somebody else made a plan for us after we do certain things.
Okay, well, my apologies. I thought you were speaking about here because the guy did kill the guy and left he died in his wife's arms, leaving children behind and him at the service station. And as far as I know, he's still on the loose. They got all points bulletin out for the guy, but just killed the guy, But I thought you were speaking about him. My apologies for that. Thank you, George, for your call. Appreciate you very much. To the phone, or rather here. This is from Mr. Malachi. Peace to both of you, brothers. Question number one, Mr. Fuller, do white supremacists put black people in warehouses to work in order to further the divide amongst each other?
To divide what among each other?
I'm just reading the question. It says, do the white supremacists put black people in warehouses to work in order to further the divide amongst each other?
Well, if I understand the question, everything that the white supremacists do, every breath that they take, because that's how white supremacists think, is how can I use and abuse people of color for my satisfaction? So they'll do anything to accomplish that. That's their whole goal in life. That's the whole reason for being white supremacists. They don't have any other goal. You take that goal away from them, they don't know what to do. They're completely lost. If they wake up, if what you call a real refined, dedicated white supremacist, which is, you're talking about a huge population of this planet Earth. Mm-hmm. Those white people who believe in dominating and mistreating people of color, if they woke up today, sleeping late, if they're in that time frame, and they heard that black people of color, had disappeared from the planet during the night. Complete mystery. Something that monumental. They just disappeared. Like they'd gone to another planet, which the creator of the planet could do. Every last one of them. And we were somewhere in another situation altogether. Big fantasy. Pure fiction, of course. But I'm saying, suppose that was true, just to give the illustration of what the caller is saying. The dedicated white supremacists would collapse from fright, from feeling worthless, from everything. What they call progress is dominating and mistreating people of color. If they can't do that, this thing called happiness and all like that, because they ain't happy about nothing. They don't care nothing about it, new inventions or nothing. That's all they care about. A white supremacist at a deep level, sometimes you almost got to pull it out of them, because on the surface they seem like, who, me? A racist? Like they use that expression. He doesn't have a racist bone in his body. Like, what's a racist bone? Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking that,
but that, in answer to the question, a white supremacist, once they latch on to that idea, they become delirious.
Okay.
They become completely drunk on that idea.
All right, drunk
and
on the idea.
And they are not satisfied with anything other than being a white supremacist.
Okay. Well, with that in mind, continuing, how can one navigate such a hostile, 1L, environment when all other races at work don't get along with the black people, and the black people don't get along with each other?
It's because of the white supremacists. And the white supremacists, by the way, you learn how to talk about it, for one thing. It's not but one race. And what is the name of that race? The white race. Some people say, oh, you know, Fuller, I was taught in school as the human race. No such thing as a human race, because there's no such thing as human people. Because you cannot be humane in the system of white supremacy. It's impossible. Not according to the standards of quality relationship codification. I hear a lot of static in the background.
Yeah, I hear a lot of static too. I don't know. It's not on this end this time.
Okay,
anyway,
talking.
And then number 3. I don't know what that is. Okay. I don't know what that was. Okay. And then number 3 is Corey, that's not you, is it? My goodness. I don't have you on.
Dragging and I'm like, maybe I could just put a note.
I'm very disturbed about this.
Yes, you can't talk through that.
No, I can't talk through that. Let me see here. Let me do this, Corey. Let me see if I can get you in here, because I don't know where that's coming from. Boy, Corey, we got you in here.
It's stopped now, I think. Wait a minute.
It's not on. Okay, it's not on Corey. It's not on your end, is it, sir?
No.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, I don't know what's going on with that. All right. Anyway, go ahead. Okay. Hey, Corey, just hang on for a second. Let me finish this off here. Hang on, Corey, just for a second. The last part of that, Mr. Fuller, was this: why do blacks act as if any new blacks that come on the job is some kind of threat to them? So they lie to tell everything, and more often treat each other with less contempt than suspected white racists do.
Yes, that's the plan of the white supremacists. They always keep black people at each other's throats. I mean, that's the very thing. That's a given. I mean, when you capture a bunch of people, one of the first things you do is put it in their minds that the other people who are captured are the cause of their problem. That makes it everything easy for you. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Your fellow prisoners are your problem. So what you do is start prison fights. You look forward to this fighting the guy in the next cell. That's all. Why? Because you feel helpless, and you don't want to feel helpless. So you feel like you're gaining some kind of power if you fight the person who is your cellmate. Well, I can do something, so I might as well fight him. I can't fight nobody else. I definitely ain't going to fool with them guards out there. This is a death camp. And if I fight them, I'm going to be dead in 2 seconds. Because that's how it is in most of the world prisons. Yeah. Oh, that's what you're going to do? You going to show that you got some muscle and you ain't got nothing?
Huh.
But your muscle in your arms? And I got 9 people up there with machine guns? All right, good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck with that. Okay. Thank you, Mal. Let's go over to Corey. Corey, let's see if we can get you back here. Okay, Corey. Sorry about that. You got blamed for something you didn't do. But anyway, go ahead.
Greetings, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I just found out recently the white supremacists changed the dictionary definitions of a man, a woman, and even the pronoun they, T-H-E-Y, to basically mean a man can be someone who was born of a different sex but identifies as a man, and the same with a woman. And the pronoun they, T-H-E-Y, can mean a single person who doesn't have any specific gender. Can you please speak to us about the importance of words as scientific weapons and why we have to be very precise with our words?
Because the white supremacists make sure that they are the masters of the language. That's why I have a compensatory counter-racist word guide. And sex, according to the code, which you can get by going to producejustice.com, the compensatory counter-racist word guide, sex is interaction between male and female. We do have a category of people called males, and we have another category of people called females. Now, the males have some characteristics of the females, like males have nipples on their chest, male people. Females have nipples on their breasts. Now, what the difference is, I guess it happened through evolution, both males and females could nurture offspring, because the breast has what? Milk. The finest of milk, much better than milk that came from cows and goats. Milk that came from cows and goats, even today, are for cows and goats. They're not for people. Breast milk is quality milk if it comes from a female. At one time, the males probably had breasts too, like a female. But they had other organs that didn't match the females. And over a period of time, the males said, look, we got to divide the work up. So they evolved. People can change, all right? So the people who are what you call in the rainbow thing, they're correct about that when they say that, because people have evolved. But here in the year 2022, there's no reason to say that what is evolved in now with this racist sexual rainbowism is confusion, because it's artificial. People are being told things that are not true. They'll say, well, it's true because it's in my mind. You can be whatever you want to be. That's not true. In fact, that's a slogan that came out some years ago, decades ago. Be all that you want to be. Or you are anything that you want to be. No, you're not. some ancient people thought that. Well, I want to be half horse and half man, so they made statues. You see it in the history books. It didn't work. It didn't work. They say, well, if I'm half man and half horse, I can run faster. But there's a whole lot of other things you ain't going to be able to do. Now that you think that you can do that, and nobody's never seen anything like that. A person's head on a horse. It probably can be done with a whole lot of effort, but is it the thing to do? What's the constructive value? They found out, no, you know what? It's best to go back to this plain old people and stop trying to be half lion. Why? Because lions are strong, and they can eat all kinds of meat, and they can chase that meat down. They can do this, but a whole lot of things lions can't do. A whole lot of things bears can't do. Fish stay in water. Take that fish out of water, it's helpless. Creatures have limitations.
Yes.
The white supremacists are now trying to say, when it comes to sex, there are no limitations. You can just turn into anything. It's a snap of a finger and parade up and down the street. And tons of black people are buying into that nonsense. But first not asking, what's the constructive result? What's the constructive result of this thing that you want me, this parade you want me to join and lead? Because that's who they do. That's what the white supremacists do. Anything that doesn't make sense, they want the black people to be right up front. Anything that's absolutely stupid and absolutely silly. And what I'm saying now, I'm saying it to the whole world. Now, if they want to come after me, take your best shot. Because we're talking about logic here. Logic. And the bottom line, I keep it in mind when I say the things that I'm saying right now. What's the constructive result? Show me where it's constructive. I mean, you know, whatever it is you do. Say, well, we're doing something that's really different. Well, it's not just a matter of being different. Lots of things can be different. But what's the constructive result of the difference that you're making? The code says we're supposed to be heading towards something we've never been. And that is universal man in total compatibility with universal woman. It's never been produced in the history of the world. If you're going to produce something, show where it's an improvement, not something that's turning into something that's either going backwards or something that is turning into confusion and chaos, which is what you have with this racist, sexual rainbowism, because it's aimed at the non-white people of this planet. And they'll pull tons of black people into that.
We have to close out the hour, but thank you, Corey, for your participation. And for those of you who have to go, thank you for listening to the first hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller. I wish you would stay tuned for the second hour because we're going to discuss trans and transhumanism. That's going to be coming up. Maybe get some chat on that. But thank you for listening to the first hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Hopefully you can join us for next week. Now, if you are going to stick and stay, don't go away for the second hour, we're going to be glad to have you. We sure enough are. And don't forget, the word today was plan. Plan. That's what Mr. Fuller started off in the thoughts and expressions of Mr. Neely Fuller. Plan. So we'll see you on the second side of the hour coming up here in about 5 seconds. All righty. Welcome back to the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller. For those that accidentally still have let me say thank you for listening to the first hour. And for those of you who are still on, I ain't got to thank you for hanging in there, and thank you for listening. Call in, you know the number, 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button. You're in line when you do that. First-time caller, tell the call screener that. We got something specially set up for you. You can join the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com, and they getting hot and heavy in there. Yes, they are. Go to blogtalkradio.com, click on programs. Then you want to produce Justice Show, you click on that, and the chat room is coming up. And I did see something about trans. There's been a 300% increase in trans students in some districts since this whole movement started, movement being the trans movement. Somebody had told me about transhumanism, and I'm still trying to figure out what the hell that is, but that's just me. But anyway, check that bad boy out in the chat room. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And I will give you a symbol when I have it, and then you'll know that I have it. And it won't be read today, but it will be read at some time, and I'll give you the date and time for that. I forgot to mention, but more importantly, this: all the books, all the materials. We got so involved in that first hour that we didn't do this. But all the books and materials can be obtained by going to producejustice.com. That's at producejustice.com. All the books. That's what I heard. So you may want to keep that in mind, and you may want to do that. Raymond in Georgia, let me see if I can get you in here. Go ahead, Raymond. You're on with Mr. Fuller.
Yes, Mr. Bobby. Good morning.
Raymond?
Yes. Yes.
You're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Yes. Morning. Yeah, Mr. Fuller, I'd like to ask if it's for me to in my workplace actually get the question. So it's for me to
Raymond, excuse me, your phone is breaking up so badly we can't even hear you. Let me suggest this. Hang up and call back in, and they will get you up to the front of the line, okay? Because, man, you are really sounding bad. So hang up and then call me, and then call us back. I'll make sure that you get to the front of the line. While he's doing that, Mr. Fuller, this came up. I don't know if this is what this information is, but Furlan wrote this. He says, hi, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. There are black personas online encouraging black men to donate at sperm banks. Can you please tell your listeners, can your listeners be warned not to do it? People conceived in that way have no idea of where they are coming from, meaning that they can one day run into their own siblings and procreate with them. Now, I haven't heard anything about that. Have you heard anything about this, Mr. Fuller?
No, I haven't, but to the extent, I'll come right out of the code on that one, to the extent that the white supremacists have anything to do with it, it is to directly and indirectly make the system of white supremacy stronger. Anytime you start talking about sperm banks and trading this and trading that, and you got a whole lot of different stuff in vials and glass tubes and all like that, or some type of vaccination process or something, always be suspicious. Always. Because if the white supremacists have anything to do with it, and they have something to do with everything, most of the things that have to do with black people, remember Tuskegee. Remember a whole lot of things they've done all over the world, including poisoning the water, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just be suspicious. But chances are you can't do anything about it. But at least be aware of it And maybe you can come up with something that you can do about it. Because if you're not aware of it, then you won't even attempt to do anything about it or think about doing anything about it because you're not aware of it.
Okay.
So he's making, the caller is making, he or she is making us now aware of that, so we take note of that.
Okay.
Be aware. Always be suspicious. And if anything that
go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
produces is not constructive, just point that out as not being constructive, because that's all you can do.
Okay.
In a lot of instances, they have the power.
They sure do. Justice Warrior indicated this from the chat room. Transhumanism goes along with transgenderism. Basically, the powers that be want to transform society as we know it by turning humans into hybrid robots/machines, soulless, godless, sexless, genderless, raceless, and so forth. Thank you, Justice Warrior. Wow. Whew. Have mercy. Thank you. Woo. Okay. Mr. Fuller, this is from Rachel. She said, I heard you reply to the question I asked last week, but my follow-up question is this. Is security, meaning feeling safe and the ability to do what you constructively want, she parenthesized that, only found in a system of justice? The code, quote, /logic will lead us to justice. Is that correct?
Correct. That's the goal. But that's the initial goal. Justice means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. But with justice, which means balance between people, and I just interpreted what that means, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that every person that needs help gets the most constructive help as soon as you become aware of it. Now, that's justice, the compensatory definition for justice. But you have a plus right after that. Justice plus correctness. Now, that's getting in balance with the environment, the universe. We have been given a wonderful environment, which the white supremacists don't care anything about. They're just ruining it, experimenting with it, trying to be the masters of it rather than utilizing it the way that it should be utilized. Preserving the water, preserving the food, not trying to make artificial food, which is what they do, and put it in the grocery stores, particularly where there are people of color, all sorts of labels on bottles saying drink this, drink this, drink this, and there's no nutrition value at all.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to water, dump everything that you can possibly find into it.
Yeah.
Dump all the waste and all the fluids that you can find. Spill oil all over it. Don't care about it. I mean, you can't drink oil. Not the kind you put in your motor. But that's what they expect black people to do.
Yes, sir.
And they laugh about it. And they say, well, you know, it's all, I mean, you know, it takes, we have to have a big project, I mean, to do that. And then they'll put down leaded pipes, knowing full well that they're that way,
and
have people drink that.
Wow.
But see, that's what I mean by correctness.
Yes, sir.
Justice plus correctness equals peace. But also, prior to, in order to get justice, you first have to have another element. And it's in the textbook for victims of racism. Here's the equation, the full equation. Truth plus justice plus correctness will equal, in parentheses, a word called peace, which is something that has never existed here on planet Earth in recorded history. There's never been peace among any people, anywhere. Why? Because people, as far as the record shows, and I don't see any evidence to the contrary, I have no reason to believe there is some evidence, that people have always done harm to people. And the white supremacists came along and made it even more acceptable and put it on a grand codified scale that everybody's been locked into. Peace is a joke. The white supremacists glorify what? War.
War.
Which means what? Destroy. Glorify destruction. Be happy when you see something being destroyed. And that's why all the movies are mostly about destruction. Most of them.
Okay.
Not about building anything. Not about peace at all. But they'll say that. Well, we got to have war in order to have peace. Why not just have peace without it? Without war. Why we got to go through war first and then declare that the war is over, we got peace? That's what you call white supremacist thinking. They love that.
On that trend that's running in the chat room, Still Learning 2 wrote this concerning transhumanism, all that, says that people are becoming, quote, mazed, and then D, by the realism of their avatar created by an app. This is the soft opening and the puppy dog cell, he put that in quotes, which gets people attracted to the product to where they don't want to give up. The avatars will animate it using the info harnessed from the algorithms that monitor internet activity and social media activity. No need for the fallible human as the avatar can be tailored for performance by the architects like they did in the Matrix. Wow. That runs deep because we mostly all use the what? Internet. New caller alert. Hang on, Swab. We got to get this new caller in. Roy from Akron, Ohio. Get ready. Be brief. Here we go. If we can get you in. Good morning and welcome to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Grand Rising family. Grand Rising, Baba Fuller. I have a question that I would like to propose, and I'm still learning. I'm not in any way trying to change the course of your historical work. But Dr. Fuller, I would like to ask, if it's possible, and please pardon the noise in the background. I'm in the auto office trying to get some work done on my vehicle, and nobody's here to answer their phone. This is the only quietest place I could find outside of the garage. But there is something that I feel we use, and we kind of prop these people and their systems up by saying white supremacy, when it is really hate supremacy. And as opposed to giving them a pedestal of supreme anything, because they are not supreme, they are only supreme in hate behavior, actions, and systems that they have developed to keep us oppressed. I only ponder the thought and the idea of presenting to you that they are not supreme in a whiteness, because that is a pure essence in a sense of, as based on what I have learned and studied about the word white. they are supreme in hate and hate alone. So the term white supremacy gives them a pedestal in and of itself. I believe we maybe should look at the reality of this actions that they are perpetuating, which is solely based on hate. And I will leave the call to listen to your response. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate you. I'm so honored by even your presence.
All righty. Thank you. This is Roy. Thank you for your comment. Mr. Fuller, you care to comment before we move on?
Well, I have written a book based on 3 types of people on the planet. The conclusion I came to: white people, non-white people, and white supremacists. And the white supremacists are the most powerful people on the planet of the 3 categories of people. And I see that as being the truth. Now, many people have told me down through the years, call it something else, then I'll feel better. Well, the code can't go that way, in my opinion. Now, if a person feels better and can operate better, calling it something else, and it comes out that they can function better in doing the things that need to be done, then by all means, make that a part of your code. But basically, this is about something called an invention called racism. And racism in the form of white supremacy, because it was invented by the white supremacists, according to the evidence, has become the most powerful religion and the most powerful political system, government, in the history, recorded history, of the entire planet. And is based on not hate, because hate was here before there was white supremacists, according to recorded history. People hated each other right from the beginning, I understand. Hate came practically with the universe. White supremacy didn't. But that's something that was invented. And you can say that the white supremacists hate black people. Well, you can even call it hate, or you can just call it domination. You can call it by a lot of other names. And you can say it's hate supremacy. Well, you go back through history, even before white supremacy, hate was before white supremacy, so you can call it that, hate supremacy, since the system of white supremacy is based on artificially saying and propagating that one of the requirements of the white supremacists is to hate black people. But the white supremacists will say, no, I love black people, which they do. They say that. I don't hate black people. I love black people. But they are primitive. They're like children. You have to spank them, or they'll just run all over the place doing stupid stuff. So we are the spankers. Sorry about that. That was our assignment. Our Creator put us in charge of them. Say, take charge of these ignorant children. Do something with them. I'm tired of fooling with them, and I'm the God. So you white people, I'm going to assign you to take them into your custody and raise them in some kind of order. And in order to do that, you got to spank them constantly, because they're all out of control. Now, that's the white supremacist philosophy. And they say, I don't hate them. I just keep them in line. Otherwise, everything will be all messed up, because they don't know how to do nothing that makes sense.
Okay.
And it sounds like that's the way it ought to be. And many black people at a deep level say, well, that's the way it is, and really, the good Lord wanted it to be any other way. It'll be that way. But we got to take things the way it is and go someplace else. After we die. And the white supremacist said, nah, you got it, boy. You finally realize what the deal is. Now get back in line and everything will be great.
Yeah. All right, Roy, new caller. Do not be a stranger and get that automobile taken care of, because I know they charge you sky-high prices. Thank you. Swa, my L.A. connection, baby. L.A., you're on, Swa. Good morning.
Greetings, Mr. Bobby. Greetings, Mr. Neely for Jr. I'd like to stay on the line.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Neely for Jr., can you compare the reason for being that white people have and non-white people have?
Compare what?
The reason for being.
Reason for being? The reason for everybody being, according to the code, is to become what we are, go from what we are, which is totally inadequate. And when I say we, I mean everybody on this planet. Because people harm each other, and they harm things around them. We're nowhere near being human beings. We're not qualified. So we will be human beings when we become universal man and universal woman in perfect harmony. It's never been done. But that should be our objective. See, otherwise we're just blumming around on the planet doing a whole lot of nothing and being harmful to everything in the process. And that's what the white supremacists glorify. Our goals should be better than the goals that they have set. See, when you set goals that are completely, you might say, out of sight, that's the way to go. Because what is out of sight can be brought about through a thing that we call, and this word is not used very much, but it's a very important word, vision. And I think even there are Bible sayings about things unseen. This is what inventors do. You say, what are you making? Say, I'm making something that will do things that have never been done before. That's what an inventor does. Never been done? Oh, you can't do something unless it's been done before. If you have vision, you can. You can imagine things. They even have a song called Imagination. Imagination is funny. Makes cloudy days sunny. You can imagine that. Maybe you can bring it about. Now, the white supremacist said, yeah, we got great imagination. That's why we can imagine things like in every area of activity. Not only things like a new economic system, never been heard of before, but we can imagine things through our imagination in the areas of law, politics, religion, and what we are doing now, sex. We can make anything sex. Take anything and make it a new form of sex. How about that? Sex is very powerful. People are motivated by sex more than anything, more than food, more than really breathing at certain points.
Alrighty.
Yes, I mean, so they know that they can control people better once they, in all areas of activity. When I say they, I mean the white supremacists know this. That's why they're messing with sex, where black people are concerned. All types of things. It's drowning us in all types of different types of sexuality, called rainbowism. It's racism at its worst, because they know how powerful sex is. And if you can get control of people's sexuality, you can jerk them around in economics, education, entertainment. You can jerk them in any direction you want with your little finger.
Yeah. All right. Swa, I'm going to keep you on the line as you requested. So I don't have to tell you don't be a stranger, so let me keep you on the line. Thank you for listening. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a quick break here. You're listening to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and we thank you for doing that. To get in contact with the show in the last 34 minutes, simply call this number, 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button if you have a comment or a VGQ or a question, and that'll be fine. First-time caller, let the call screener know that you're a first-time caller, and we have something especially set up for you. If also, you can get in contact with the show by my Gmail address. That is the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And I will get it. I will send you a symbol to let you know that I have received it. And, of course, you can get into the chat room. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com, and then you want to click on programs. And when you do, click on the Produce Justice Show when it comes up. Then hit chat room, and you are in the chat room. That's all you have to do. And there's some good chats going on in there right now. In particular, I think it's Black to Death wrote this, Mr. Fuller, said this: white supremacy is a business. It's not hate that propels the system of white supremacy. It's fear. Genetic annihilation is what drives white supremacy to maintain its dominance over non-white black males. Black to death. Wow. All righty. So while you're hanging on, let me do this. We have a lot of people around the world, people that actually listen to the program. And I'm getting ready to read something from my brother from, Durban, South Africa. Says this: good morning, sir. I hope that you're doing well this day and that you are enjoying all the Christmas trees that the world has to offer. I certainly am enjoying Christmas trees. They say the best things in life are 3. My question for you, Mr. Fuller, is more of a thought experiment. Let's say a man is accused of being mentally ill. His family or care unit is convinced that he is crazy because he says that he is a state instead of saying that he himself is himself, and agreeing to their classification of him as a person rather than a state. Mr. Fuller, should the family take this person to a professional for help? Would it be wise for them to maintain that he is a state and not a person as his family would have him be? Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. This is kind regard from Durban, South Africa.
Well, I don't know all the details of what the person means and how the person acts as a result of having taken that position. But I'll just give the code expression. That's a word. That word, state. What does the code say a state is? A state is a person. Now, that's what I have in the code book. When you say United States, you're talking about united people. You're talking about not trees. You're not talking about alligators. presumably, unless you are talking about alligators, a person is a state because a person is a state of being. When you say United States, you're talking about united people. I mean, you know, a state is just a word just like any other word. Why are you using the word state? You know? Well, why do you use any words at all? It's just to communicate an idea. So it comes down to if the person that we're talking about in this case says that he is a state, and he says he's not a person, but actually, according to the code, if he's both. He's a state of being and also a person. A person and a being is different types of beings, but there's no human beings under the system of white supremacy, not one. Why? Because according to logic, you can't have people who are human in a system of white supremacy. That's what supreme means. It does not allow it. It doesn't allow you to be a human being or a human state or a state of humanity. They don't allow that. Just white supremacists and their victims. That's what the white supremacists want, and that's what they got. They got what they wanted. They're not trying to get it. They've had it long before I was born. We were born into the system of white supremacy. So you just got a whole lot of states that they have acquired, states of being, which means people who are beings, but they're not human beings. We should try to be human beings, but that's what the white supremacists don't want. Because human beings do what? Practice justice. Nobody practices justice because that's impossible in the system of white supremacy. Mm-hmm. But you find out from the person in answer to the question, what is your ultimate objective? You can go through the wants. The person wants to be called a state. Okay, what's going to be the constructive result of you going from being whatever you say you were to being a state? That's all it comes down to anyway. What's going to be the constructive result of you saying that you're not this, you're that? Okay, so far so well. Because the code says you can call yourself by any title that you want to. But then you ask the question to yourself and give the answers to others and whatnot. Because all questions are supposed to have answers. What's going to be the constructive result of you making this change in title? Because that's all it is, a title.
Yes, sir. Okay. All righty. Let's do this before we go down to Tennessee. This is from Mr. Duncan. Says this, Mr. Fuller. Yeah, my screen would go dark on me. Okay, Mr. Fuller. The strength of any nation or people has always been in the strength of a man. Why have the white supremacists been so effective in establishing patriarchal leadership in their family structure while promoting matriarchy or welfare state in the black family specifically? 70% single-parent homes. Then he gave a YouTube thing here that some of this information is on. So why is that, Mr. Fuller?
That may or may not be true. First of all, you find out whether or not that's true. And if it is true, the white supremacists don't do anything without a plan. So it means that if that's what they're doing, their plan is to give strength to the system of white supremacy. See, a lot of things the white supremacists do seem like it doesn't mean much. But later on, when a lot of other things start happening as a result, then we always see, we the victims, including myself, we see it clearly because they have what? Vision of making white supremacy stronger. So when they initially start out doing something, it might seem like it's doomed to failure or that it doesn't make any sense at all, but it makes sense to them because they are thinking further ahead than any black person has ever thought.
Mm-hmm.
The white supremacists are the greatest thinkers on this planet. And sometimes it looks like what they're doing doesn't mean nothing. But then you'll find out 50 years later, oh boy, it meant everything. Because it's messed up me big time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. In your observation, before we move to the next caller, in your observation, can you say, or do you think, in your observation, that homes seem to be run more by women or the matriarch of the family as opposed to men in the white families, only as you observe, in your opinion?
Either that, at this particular time, it looks like they're, to use a cliche saying, shooting themselves in the foot. But that could be just on the surface. Because you got to think, if I'm thinking about that, and this caller is thinking about that, you can pretty well be sure the white supremacists have thought of that too.
Mm-hmm.
But they might be faking people out by saying, we are going to pretend in 2022, near the end of it, that we are putting a woman in charge.
Okay.
And that, but we got a long-range plan where we're faking out the black people again, because they always look at what's on the surface. They never look behind the screen.
Mm-hmm.
All right? That's how black people, that's how we train them. They just go by what's on the surface. They buy stuff based on what's on the surface. So we always put everything right on the surface that we want to attract them to.
Yes, sir.
But we got a plan that goes much deeper than what we put on the surface. So that's why the code says, always look beneath the surface, and beneath that surface might be 2 or 3 other things that you can call a surface.
Yes, sir.
Before you finally get to what? The root.
The root.
Yeah. Always be suspicious of any move that they make.
Good point, Fuller. Good point. I'm agreeing with you on that one because you are absolutely correct. Always be suspicious. Thank you. All right, Tennessee. Terrence, here we go. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead. Wait a minute. Yeah, go ahead, Terrence. You're there.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Had so many things listening to the program, a really good program. So I'm limited to just this. One is just a comment. Today on December 20th in 1956 was the end of the Montgomery bus boycott.
Wait a minute. We can't hear you. What did you say it was in 1956?
In 1956, on December 20th, was the day that Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott ended.
Yes, sir.
So I thought that was interesting.
Okay. On this date, December the 20th?
Yes, December the 20th.
Okay.
But what I heard something that interests me, that's really interesting to me, was a gentleman. His name is Charleston White. He used to be a gang member, and he's been on social media a lot. And he's just a rough dude, but he says a lot of interesting things. And he was talking about when he was a gangbanger, and gangbangers, when they were planning their, getting up in the morning and loading their weapons, that they never had the idea that they were going to shoot a white person. It always, in their mind, was going to be another black person. And they fantasize in their fantasies about the drive-bys, about the shooting, in their fantasies, it was always a black person and never was anybody else. And so I just thought that was just real interesting. And I wanted to hear Mr. Fuller's comment about that.
Okay. All right. Mr. Fuller, what about that? Gang members fantasizing about killing black people but not about killing white people.
Oh, we've been trained to do that. That's why it's going to be. I mean, we celebrate Christmas. I mean, hey, I got a new box of ammunition, so I'm gonna kill somebody. Now, who am I gonna kill? I'm gonna kill all these, black people around here that I don't like. I mean, and that guy down there, I mean, that took over my 3 years ago, took over that corner where I sell drugs. And he got together with 5 and 6 other people. I was just by myself. So they told me that they was taking over that corner. I'm going to kill all of them. I know where they hang out. I'm going to ambush them. All right? This is the type of plans that black people have. All right? Knowing full well that there's an aftermath for that. But we don't want to even think about anything that far. We just want to think about what we want to do at the moment. We're not thinking about all that time that we're going to have to think about what we did. Because we ain't going to be able to do nothing else. Sit in a little box and looking forward to 55 years of being in a box. And the only plan we can make, if it's somebody else in that little box with you, is start a rumble with them about every 5 days, and then get in solitary confinement, and then come back and do the same thing all over again. That's the plan that millions of black people have, if they tell the truth. That's the only plan they have. They don't have any other plan. None. Zero. I'm going to sell this beef, and I'm going to pay for it during 55 years thinking about it. Yeah, I killed him. He's dead. Now I got 55 years to think about I killed him and he's dead. Well, what about your plans now? Well, I didn't have no plan for that. But somebody else did, the white supremacists. They planned it before you were born. They knew what you were going to do because they planned it. We got to become aware of that. The things that black people do. Stop and think. Is this my plan? When I was 8 years old? Or is this somebody else's plan for me? Drop out of school in the 9th grade, kill somebody, because that's what I'm going to do, and do 55 years or 60 years in a box. And then my next box, which will be right around the corner, is at the funeral home. That's my plan. But that's what black people have as a plan, without even knowing that that's their plan. That's why I started off this program. Make a plan that makes sense, and make it now, and stick with it. That's going to have a constructive result for you. Because we're filling up all the prisons and they're building more. They're going to have to build more. Why? Because of their plan. They know where you're going. They know where you're going. They know where you're going when you're laying up in the hospital letting out your first cry for help. Because we're born, babies asking for help. And you stay here long enough, you're going to be begging for help next time.
Yes, sir.
And while we're talking about begging, I'd like to talk about capitalism. Just throw this in. All people want to be capitalists, which means you want to have something. You want to have something. Capitalism just means having something. So all people You're born wanting to be a capitalist. You want somebody to give you some food. That's why the baby cries, give me something. I'm helpless. Now, the white supremacists tell people, they tell black people, be capitalists. Don't be communists. Don't be socialists. Without explaining what capitalism is. Having something. So when they took everything that you get, you got to get it from them. So that's why they don't allow you to be a beggar. But we should embrace that. How do you become a capitalist? Except begging. There are two other ways. You invent something that people want or need, or you become a robber or a thief. And when black people want capital, the white supremacists, either directly or indirectly, say, yeah, you can get capital. I want you to be a capitalist, but that means you got to rob and steal. We rob and steal on the big scale because we steal whole continents. No, we want you as a black person to go down there at that furniture company and try to walk out with a lamp. And then we give you 10 years for stealing. All right? Because that's a way to gain capital. You say, well, what if I go the other route? There's three ways to get capital: robbing and stealing, or inventing something. Now, that third way is you beg. So it's better to be a beggar than a robber and a thief, according to the code. And going into this next year, no black person should steal anything or rob anybody. But we should all be what the white supremacists say we should be. They didn't leave us but one other option: beggars. We came into the world begging, and if we go out begging, so what? Because they took everything. All right? So you got to beg them for a job. And if they say, I ain't going to give you no job, get out there and rob and steal for what you need. That's what they're telling us. They don't teach you nothing in school that'll take care of your needs. They know that, too. They know you're going to drop out. So that leaves an option: robbing and stealing. We need to stop falling for that and say, no, we'll beg you for what we want. Well, begging is illegal. Why would you make something illegal when you say that's the only way to get capital? When it ain't but three ways. That's the only way to go if you don't invent nothing. Robbing and stealing is the other way to go. I ain't no inventor because you don't give me enough knowledge to invent something. And I ain't going to be no robber and no thief. So that leaves me one option, and that's begging.
Begging. Okay.
Yeah, because that's what we do anyway. Even when we want loans on a car, that's begging.
All right. All right. Terrence, thank you so much. Ray, you're on.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Could you
Good morning, sir.
Please, sir? Thanks. Good morning. Mr. Fuller, I have two questions regarding a term in the Word Guide on page 90, the devastated people.
You say what now?
Page 90?
Yes.
What does
page
it say?
90, the devastated people. I have two questions about that term.
Oh, we're devastated people?
Yes, I have two questions about that term that you have in here.
Okay, you have two questions. Go ahead and ask the first question. I'll answer that first.
Yes, sir. Why is it that term should be used in particular when referring to black males?
I'm referring to black people, non-white people, black, brown, red, yellow, as being that right this minute. Why? What does the word devastation mean? It means we have been destroyed. as human beings and the potential for being human. We are devastated, meaning we are suppressed. We are knocked down. We are not allowed to do things that we should be doing. And we are allowed and encouraged and enticed to do everything that we shouldn't be doing. And so that's a devastated people. Devastated just means ruin. That's all. You ruin something. Take a baby and just ruin it. Just have it doing all kinds of stuff that don't make sense. Because we are babies in the system of white supremacy. We are their illegitimate children from birth. Why? Because they captured us. They captured our parents. We were born in captivity. People born in captivity are devastated people. We got to be made over again in every way that you can name, because we are a people who are worthless. Worth less than what? Worth less than we should be, which is human beings. We are not that. The white supremacists are not that either, because there is no humanity in the system of white supremacy. The system of white supremacy doesn't allow it. So yes, we are devastated, along with a whole lot of other things that you can call us that shouldn't be.
What's the second question, Roy? Ray?
For the record, Mr. Fuller, can that devastation be reversed without the use of compensatory codification?
No, that's the only formula that I have, in my opinion. That's why I came up with that. I said we need a code. That's the one thing we do not have. The white supremacists have a code. Code just means going about doing things in a way that always works. The white supremacists have proven that principle of the universe more than anybody. They do things that work better than anybody. Whether it's something that shouldn't be done or something that should be done. They're masters of them both because they have a code for that. But they have taught black people to do stuff that the black people themselves know ain't going to work. But we'll do it anyway. Why? Because that's how they trained us. It's like you train a dog. Turn over, Rex. Jump up and down, Rex. Dance, Rex. Dancing dog. All right? But they put us on a leash so that we don't start doing things on our own. We can do a whole lot of stuff as long as we're on that leash. And the only time they let black people do anything that makes sense is when they are doing it for the system of white supremacy.
You ain't even wrong there. That's right, I said ain't. Thank you, Ray. Mr. Fuller, time for you to talk about that book.
Yes, you can get the book by going to producejustice.com. What will come up on the screen are 3 books. The original version that came out in 1984, it has a computer design on it. All right? That came out in 1984. Then, in 2016, even before 2016, I managed to rush it out, a 2016 version of the first book. So the second book is supposed to be better than the first. But some people say they like the first one better. Some people say they like them both, but that the first one is better. So I didn't have the first one on this website, producejustice.com, when I first started going on this podcast and other podcasts. But I put the original version up there because people said they got more out of the original version than they did out of the second version. And some people say I was a better writer then. And in a lot of ways, I've looked at both books, and I think I was. I got worse in the 2016 edition, and but then in a lot of ways, I did get better, because it's more there and more to choose from, so it got better in that direction. But I think I'm as a writer, I think I'm very poor all around. But the two books are there. And then there's an additional book that came out before the revised edition, and that was in 2010. And that's a word guide, which I think is pretty well put together. And like some people have said, well, it don't have all the words that's in the dictionary in it, and that's why I call it not a dictionary, but a word guide, because it's not all words that you'll be dealing with. But you should ask questions about every word that a person uses when they're writing or speaking to you, or in any situation where the definitions for words are in question. And you should be the questioner if nobody else is. That's a part of the code. What do words mean? Just like the caller before said, what does devastation mean? I'm supposed to be able to explain what devastation means in detail and explain it in a way that people understand it. Because if you're saying something that people don't understand, that means they're not communicating. And where it comes to the white supremacists, they're real good at that. And that is saying things that they don't intend for you to understand. And they do a lot of it. That's why the word guide is so important. You can get all the books, or you can get the two that I recommend, and that's the 2016 edition, the revised, expanded, and the word guide. Or you can get just the revised, expanded edition. But I think the word guide is also helpful. And the original book has words in it. It has a word guide in the back of the book, but it's abbreviated. And even the updated version is abbreviated because it does not have most of the words in the English language. But then, like I said before, it wasn't intended to. But certain words are more important than others, I think. And I tried to get the important words, as many of them as I could think of, and put definitions to them and explanations for them, and what questions they ask when other people use these words. And you'll find that it helps you to codify everything that you do. That I go through it myself as a guide, because I forget some of the definitions that I gave to words. And you can do that yourself. Take a word and give it your own definition. And you can say, well, that won't work. Yes, it will. That's how all words come into being. People just using words. Rap artists know that. And there's one, that they talk about, he named himself. His name was Kanye, I think, and he says, I'm Ye. And you say, well, what does Con mean, and what does Ye mean? Somebody could ask that. And he can answer by saying, I ain't going to tell you. See what I mean? When you control words, you control a lot. The white supremacists know that. So we do have some control over the words that we use. Because we can give words that people use all the time our own definitions. I've done it in the word guide. And if somebody says, you can't do that, what do you mean I can't do it and I already did it? See, that's my question. What do you mean I can't do that and I already did it? Now that's codified. Somebody says you can't do something and you've already done it. Inventors, they laugh at that all the time, people that invent stuff. where you can invent new definitions for words that you say don't make sense. That's what I've tried to do with the word guide. But you can get it all by going to producejustice.com.
All righty. Well, we got to leave it there. Sorry, Darnell. We have to get you next time. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers. It's we're a little bit past time, but thank you for all your calls. Hopefully we can do it again next Tuesday. Thank you. And for all the mistakes that we made, we apologize for that. We'll try to do better because we're still learning. Thank you, callers. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Do better, always. Do better, always.
ProduceJustice.com.
ProduceJustice.com.
All righty.